Another nice warm day in the low 40s, 42, 43. At least it feels warm compared to those, below 0 degree days. We've only hit maybe, 5, definitely less than 10 balls so far with an 8-iron, just kind of warming up. But yeah. So something I've noticed with a lot of golfers, whether they're rookies or they've been playing their entire lives, not all of them, but some, is they think that, this quick swing tip or new swing thought idea is just, that's it, my swing's fixed. And it's actually a book, but more so just a very well-known concept of 10,000 hours. You need to do something for 10,000 hours to master it. So the golf swing takes about a second or so. So it's really only 1 second that you're practicing in that swing. And if you're just hitting balls and not actually working on improving anything, it doesn't really count as improvement. But so with golf, instead of hours, I think it needs to be 10,000 intentional shots, just for each individual thing. I don't mean to master golf. You can't master golf unless you get a hole-in-one on every hole every time. Then you've mastered it. So it's a game that's yet to have been mastered. But I was thinking about it, and say grip, for example. It's one of the more difficult things to change. And so to change your grip, yes, I can tell you where to put your hands, or you can know where to put your hands, hold it that way, and play around that way, but you're still forcing yourself to do it. It hasn't become ingrained yet. So I'm thinking really you need to say you're keeping with grip, you need to hit 10,000 shots with that new proper grip before it becomes ingrained. So what I keep seeing is, even with good players, is that I'm working with, I'll tell them something like their grip, and it's just like, oh, they think it's done, that's it, the work's over. And you listen to some of the best players in the world, like Tiger Woods, when they're trying to change something in their swing, it'll take them 6 months, an entire season, just to make a few swing changes. So unless you're a very, very special human that, nobody's ever heard of, not even the tour players can just make a swing change in a few swings, or even an entire day of hitting balls. You can't make a swing change in one day. If you're hitting 500 to 1,000 balls a day, at least, and each one of those swings are very much intentional. You're not just swinging at it. Every single time you're working on that new movement. Only one. There's many movements in the swing to be worked on, but just to change one little aspect, just using grip as an example, or say you were a cupper of the wrist, and now you're practicing getting a square lead wrist. You need to do that 500 to 1,000 times a day for a minimum of a week. And that's if you're incredibly talented, one of the most talented human beings on the planet at that point. More realistically, 500 to 1,000 times a day for a month would be a short amount of time. Because you think Tiger Woods, you think it takes Tiger Woods 6 months to make a swing change, but you can do it in one practice session or one afternoon? I don't think so. It takes so much dedication and work. So I don't know if I, said that in the most comprehensible way, just kind of freestyling here, but too many people that, come to me for help, and I'll give them one little field to start working on. They think, that's it, I'm done now. Not that they're done, but they're fixed, they're cured, they know what they're doing. No. We're just starting with one little tiny fraction, And it's gonna take, months and months of hard work to ingrain that one aspect. It's not the whole golf swing. The whole golf swing is a lifelong pursuit of unattainable perfection. So you're never done working. Never. I don't care if you hit 1,000 balls a day, every single day, because especially when I was younger, my body breaks down a little quicker these days. I can't I can't sun up till sundown, beat balls anymore without being sore the next day. So especially now that, I'm more in my mid-30s instead of a teenager in my young 20s, I get real specific when I'm practicing. I'm not just sitting there ball, 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 ball. So I probably hit a lot less balls than I did as a kid, but I do a lot more slow motion movements and mirrors, very slow swings, working on very specific aspects of my swing. I do a lot more of that now because obviously that's going to take a far less of a toll on the body than just hitting 100% shots all day. Like, you might be able to if you're 20 years old or something, 25, sure. But let me tell you, once you hit 30, and that's taking care of yourself. Once you hit 30, things don't get easier. You might get a little stronger. I certainly feel stronger. I always hit the ball fairly long. Even when I was 15, 16 years old, I was, keeping up with the big boys on the course. Maybe not the longest player in the world, but also certainly not the shortest. I can crack the 300-yard mark. In the air, I don't mean hitting it 275 on a hard fairway and it goes over 300. I mean, if I give it a good rip, I can fly the ball just about 300's my max, and that's hit really well. Generally, it's more like, 285, 280 is probably an average carry for me on the course. So no slouch, for less than a 6 foot, about 150, 155 pound guy. I actually, one match specifically I'm remembering from college. The guy I was playing against was, 6.5 feet tall, probably 250 pounds, big gorilla, big long John Daly swing. And I was out driving him all day. And what it came down to was just, as Mo Norman would put it, purity of technique and just simple ball striking. Because it doesn't matter how fast you get that club moving, if you're not hitting it in the center of the club face with the proper angles and getting the correct launch and spin characteristics, you're never going to max out your distance. So that's why having a driver that's close to perfect for you to get the right spin characteristics. And a big mistake people make with drivers, I'm guilty of it too when I was younger. I had a 6.5 degree driver, I got a 7.5 degree driver over there. I've always hit the ball high. I still play an 8 or an 8.5 degree driver these days. But don't just take the lowest amount of loft you can hit, because it might give you the most distance, on those good strikes. But when you miss one, say a little bit of a toe hook, if you don't have enough loft or you're really limiting your spin on good shots, those bad shots are just going to drop out of the sky. So I like to basically find the lowest loft I can hit, on a good shot with that low spin, kind of optimal flight. And then I might just get a little bit more loft. So maybe I'm getting 300 or so extra revs, RPMs. On a center strike, because that means I can hit that little bit of a toe knuckleball and it's not going to drop out of the sky. You're going to get away with it a little more. And also just your ball flight characteristics. If you're a drawer of the ball, you're probably going to want to go with even a little bit more loft than a fader, because I've always been a fader of the ball, so that low loft works well. Because obviously cutting the ball, you're adding a little bit of loft on the face. A cut is going to spin a heck of a lot more. yada yada. But like I said, when working on the swing, you can have your checklist of things you work on, but really try to focus on one thing at a time. You know, I'm just keep using grip as an example. You're gonna need to grip that club properly and hit, 500 balls a day plus for months and months before you've actually changed your grip. Just to reiterate, it's not something that can happen in an afternoon. You can't change your grip on a weekend or even in a week unless you're the most talented golfer to ever live. Your skills surpass Tiger Woods' skills, then maybe you can change your swing in a week. But I've yet to meet that player. Mo Norman. I was actually just watching some old footage of him on a range, and some guys were picking his brain, and they asked him how long it took him to change his swing to that. 5 years. He worked, and Mo Norman probably, worked every day and hit more balls than basically anyone on the planet ever. And it took him 5 years to develop his swing. So, again, like Tiger talked about in the early 2000s when he made some swing changes, they weren't that dramatic of swing changes either. And it took him half a year. And he was waking up before the sun, and he was out there working, stopping only, to take showers, to eat, and to exercise so he could practice that at that high level for that amount of time. Should have taken some practice swings. Was talking for a while. I felt my back crack on that one. I've always liked this, warming up. Oh, speaking of just doing this, not only is this just a good, stretch, get your shoulders and your back kind of stretched out, maybe on the first tee, or if there was a long wait and you starting to tense up, this is something I always show to beginners. So if you're standing up straight, not bent over like the golf swing, standing up straight, you have the club out in front of you, square face. If you can just turn this on a perfectly level plane where, the face starts square, I'm trying to get it all on the camera. You come back, trail arm folds, kind of almost your armpit is pinched, creating that 90 degree or that L. Everything's flat, flat, flat. Come back square. Just basically mirror image on the other side, flat, flat, flat. So not only is this a good move just for, stretching out, but check this out. All the golf swing is that movement at an angle. It's the same thing. Your lower body is doing, since you're actually putting power and speed into it, the lower body is doing a little different moves than just standing here like this. But your upper body movements in the golf swing are essentially just this. Square to flat, square to flat. You can do this and just get this movement. Especially, this is what I show people who have never, are just learning golf. I just show them to do this and then take this move, drop it down at an angle. And I know I've said this before, but especially beginners, but even with really good players, when trying to help them, it's so, people's egos always get in the way, and it is so difficult to get anyone to swing softer. It's so difficult. Everyone wants to hit a ball every single time they're working on something. You don't need a golf ball. Take, dozens and dozens of slow motion swings, maybe getting into your backswing if you're working on that, or maybe, getting to impact and just kind of feeling this movement through. Those slow, very intentional movements and those little drills you do without a golf ball are going to do a heck of a lot more for you than if you're just trying to work on your swing all the time with hitting balls at full speed. I almost guarantee you're not going to get very much work done if you hit a ball every time you're working on something, because the ball just mentally gets in players' ways. You can see that even. How many people can make a nice, perfect backswing, perfect practice swing, perfect looking? There's no way to really tell, but nice on plane, not over the top at all. Maybe they're working on getting the club a little shallow, coming from the inside. They do that all day on their practice swings, and then the second there's a ball there, it's just, let's see. I was reading the text. And as soon as there's a ball there, it just all flies out the window. So when you're practicing, don't use golf balls. Do more stuff. I don't mean don't use a golf ball ever, but if you're really working on something, a majority of that work should and can be done without a golf ball. And that's something I wish I had a better understanding of when I was a junior player. Because of course I was the same way, being 12, 15, 18 years old or whatever, working on my swing on the range. You don't want to look stupid hitting your 7-iron 80 yards down the range all day, but that type of drill, learning to work the ball right to left to right, high, low, whatever, inside of 100 yards with, 7-iron, 8-iron, drills like that are so much more useful than like, all right, I'm coming over the top, I gotta, drop to the inside, shallow things out, and then just going at it 100% with a ball there. I've never really seen a player that's able to make those corrections swinging full at a ball. They're almost just wasting their time, and they're just going to continuing to ingrain their bad habits or whatever it is they're working on. They almost never do it successfully, swinging full at a ball, without that slow motion work, without that very intentional work where you don't need a golf ball. Some of the most successful practice sessions I've had were me in my bedroom with nothing but a golf club and a mirror. You'll change your swing, you'll make those changes, you'll hit those positions, you'll get work done a lot better. And then once you've worked on those things, you've done all that slow motion work, that mirror work, that practice swing work, then bring it to the range where you're hitting golf balls and start very, 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 very slow as you can possibly go. Especially for those of you who are brand new and slice the ball. It almost gets in their head like, oh, that weak slice out to the right. If I swing harder, it's not going to slice. And really, it just makes it slice more. Any swing speed can draw the ball. It has nothing to do with swing speed. And so, if you're learning to draw the ball, just close everything and learn to hit, 75-yard shot with a 7-iron or whatever. This is an 8, but just learn to hit these little chippy draws as slow as you possibly can. For the slicer I'm talking to. Once you get those little chippy draws pretty consistent, say to 75 yards, bump that to 100 yards, 110 yards, and then very slowly and incrementally go up and up with it. Though, again, I wish I had that more ingrained in my head as a junior, because I would have got a lot better, a lot quicker. I was always naturally decent. My first times really playing, even though I was playing from the ladies' tee because I was young, I was still shooting in the 40s. So I had some natural ability. I've said this before. It's kind of, some people are naturally athletic and are going to just naturally be fairly good. They're not going to be great. Nobody picks up a club and is great without a tremendous amount of work. But they're going to be naturally okay. And some people, it doesn't matter. They could spend every waking moment of their entire life working on it, and it's just not in the cards for them. So there is a certain aspect of any sport, really, not only golf, that boils down to just genetics and the type of person in build. Not only physically, some people like myself get very obsessed with things they want to accomplish. Like, I love practicing golf. I could sit here all day. I've always been like that, practicing. When it's dark outside, and and after practicing, what am I doing? I'm reading and learning even more. It's just, I've been that way my whole life. And after a while, you tend to hear a lot of the exact same ideas, concepts, philosophies, but in different ways. Especially if you strive to be a good teacher of the game, you shouldn't just, say Butch Harmon is your personal teacher. Okay, Butch Harmon taught me everything I need to know, so I know it all. He probably did. You do know all the fundamentals and dynamics and everything of the golf swing, but going and learning from someone else, they might have a lot of the same theories and ideas and essentially saying the same things as, say, Butch Harmon did, but they might say them in a different way. They might be more of a visual way or more of a metaphorical way, a way. I like to describe things more in feels, and then other instructors are very, your shin should be, a 5 to 10 degree pitch in the beginning, and then in your backswing you're about 40 degrees, and ideally what you see from the best players in the world is a 40 to 35 degree angle here, and you want to get 90 degree angle here, but, keeping the space, rather than, say, like, you want this angle, this certain degrees. A feel might be coming back, you want that club face and your spine angle, your upper body angle to match. I can say you want your spine angle and your club face angle to match, or I can say halfway back at this point in your backswing, you want your club at a 30 degree angle. That's just an example, two different ways to say the same thing. So like I said, especially if you strive to be a teacher or a good teacher that's, worth that hourly rate you're charging, you need to learn many different ways to describe the exact same feels, techniques, fundamentals, and so on. Because, a fool has an answer for every question, and I thoroughly believe that. And smart people, the smartest people you'll ever meet, will admit when they're wrong. They're always open to learn new things from other people. And some of the dumbest people you'll ever meet think they know everything, think they got it on lock. They're the smartest guy in the world. No one can tell them anything. And those are honestly some of the most idiotic and ignorant people you'll ever meet that are like that. I'm not saying I'm the smartest guy in the world. I'm certainly stubborn at times and think I know it all, especially when it comes to something like golf or skateboarding, things that I'm really passionate about. I have been my whole life. I do know a heck of a lot about this game, but still in my free time, I might be watching a YouTube video labeled beginner lessons for the golf swing or whatever. You think I need beginner lessons? I've been playing this game for over 25 years with an extreme obsession and just been studying it nonstop. I've taken not only that, but I've learned from many professional golfers. I've taken golf courses. I've played in many tournaments. I don't need beginner lessons, but I still watch them because of what I was explaining. They might have a new way to explain a similar concept. And that is so important. So important. All right, let's see some practice swings. I've been really bad about this here indoors, but when you're practicing on the range, if you want to get the most out of your practice session, treat each shot like it's a shot on the course. You know, whatever your pre-shot routine is, go through it. Like what I do is I stand behind the ball, you know, taking a few practice swings, visualizing the type of shot I'm going to want to play. And I might have a few exaggerated feels in my practice swing. Like if I'm trying to play a hook or whatever, or a draw, I might get a little bit of this exaggerated, kind of a little bit more bowed wrist, a little more drop to the inside, releasing the club feel. You know, I'm not going to want that exaggerated movement in my real swing, but just kind of getting that feel, visualizing it in my mind's eye. I pick my spot out, you know, in front of the ball. Pick a little spot I want it to start. Come up, I'm playing a draw, I'm assuming that's what we're talking about. Line everything up to that. Look at the target. Never stand up, come back down. Stand up and come back down. See that a lot. Just turn your head. What I do is, you know, get to the ball, get a little cozy, look up, still kind of, you know, shuffling my feet a little bit, getting in that perfect spot. Back down at the ball, and when I'm going up and down, I'm drawing a line in my mind's eye, back and forth. Not only with my full shots, but putting too. One more look. And fire. That was a nice high draw right there. So again, to get the most out of your practice sessions, treat shots on the driving range or shots you're hitting into a net like you would on the course. All right, I'm gonna keep this video a little short because, like I've said before, they take a really long time to load onto YouTube. Keep grinding, have fun, peace.